I'm Brian Foster, and this is the Grindhouse Institute. On each episode of this podcast, Jeremy Floyd and I program a triple feature movie night. Each of the movies share common themes, and we discuss them here. We're happy you could join us for today's block we call I Love Lucy Noir. Before she was wrestling with Candy Factory conveyor belts and hawking Vita Vegemin, Lucille Ball was a studio player with over 60 on-screen credits. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at 3 of her early works, each falling within the realm of the film noir genre. Left with no money after being disabled by her mob boss boyfriend and forced to give up her act, a cold-hearted lounge singer must learn to live without her former splendors. Will she continue her pursuit of a sugar daddy, or learn to enjoy the kindness and friendship offered to her by a lowly busboy? Henry Fonda and Lucille Ball star in Damon Runyon's The Big Street from 1942. A private investigator is the center of a web of deceit when he uncovers a nefarious plot involving a shifty goon and a high-end art collector. Will he be able to solve the mystery and clear his name? Not without the help of his beautiful and cunning secretary, he won't. Mark Stevens, William Bendix, and Lucille Ball star in Henry Hathaway's The Dark Corner from 1946. When her friend disappears and is thought to be another victim of a serial killer, a dancer is enlisted by London's Scotland Yard to be used as bait for the killer. Along the way, she catches several red herrings, including a sex-trafficking South American and a creepy rich dandy who not only looks like Frankenstein's monster, but also sounds like the Grinch. Lucille Ball, George Sanders, and Boris Karloff star in Douglas Sirk's Lured from 1947. Thank you for listening to the Grindhouse Institute. Please enjoy.
Lucy? John who? Where's he from?
Here, who's paying for this dance? I'd like to know, me or your lady friend?
Yeah, shut up.
You should have William Powell for a secretary.
William Powell. Who's he?
Don't you ever go to the movies? He's a detective in The Thin Man.
On the last episode, I learned that you're interested in spirits and liquors mentioned in films. So when he sent 37 Chablis, I clocked that. At the end of Lured, I was like,
Lured,
that's very George Saunders to like,
Speaking of that, like there was a part that was like really cracking me up. Like in The Dark Corner, there was like a low point where the sort of main detective was sitting there like trying to drink himself to sleep or whatever, and he double fisted 2 bottlenecks and just like poured them into a paper cup.
Oh yeah.
Just like mixing whatever he had in front of him.
That's pretty hot ginger ale you're mixing up.
Thanks, Miss Lyons. I've always wanted to work in a classy place.
Don't knock yourself out or I may change my mind. Go see the head waiter. I got it all fixed.
Can you cook?
Kinda.
No shorthand, typewriting?
Enough to make me realize I better stick to show business. Why?
No great matter. Can you do housework?
Not if I can help it.
Describe me, frankly, if you please.
Well, you're kind of grayish, heavy set, 6 feet tall, and you try to be hard-boiled, but you're really a softy. Do I get the job?
So you know what I've been aiming at.
Female detective, isn't that what you've been testing me for?
Exactly.
Welcome back to the Grindhouse Institute. I'm Brian Foster, and with me as always is Jeremy Floyd. Hello, and how are you?
Just because I got you a job doesn't mean you can talk my head off.
Seeing you here, Jeremy, has revised my opinion of you. It's gone up. Excellent.
So many good lines in all 3 of these movies today.
Definitely, yeah. If anything, there's like a great way to pull some clips for this show.
Well, it was you put out a newspaper ad, and Jeremy responded, and the ad said, "Are you young, chic, shapely, and no prude?" Right? Is that was the call?
It was that's me.
Check.
Nailed it.
Check and check.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Today's show is called I Love Lucy Noir, because before she was the Lucy that I guess I, as well as everyone, loved, she was Lucille Ball, the studio player, who was acting in several film noirs. Today's films, The Big Street, 1942, The Dark Corner, 1946, and Lured from 1947. And to discuss these delightful films, we have a special returning guest. Jeremy, if you could do the intro, please.
Yeah, well, it's film noir, so drum roll, please. Who are we bringing back? It's Alex Vlahov from OnlyFilmNoir.
Hello.
Welcome, buddy.
Hello. Very happy to be back. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's no longer a mystery that you're going to be on a noir show.
You chose some great ones here, though. I had never seen any of these before.
Oh, nice.
And I was so happy to not only be asked to do this episode, but to dive into some brand new territory. Also territory that feels like familiar. Like, I'm sure we'll get into it in each of the films, but there's like parallels to other films and things that exist, films that maybe became more popular. I loved this this triple feature. Really, really good selection here. I mean, Lucille Ball, it's I didn't, with Lured, that was her 72nd film, which I did not.
Jesus.
And people don't really talk about her film career, so I'm honored to be asked back and to talk about this, rare topic.
Yeah. I agree. I think this was a great block that Jeremy put together because of that, because I had no idea she was an actress in these kinds of films before she was such a giggly, bubbly character on screen, on TV, I should say. Yeah. And this is really showing that the range of an actor that she really was, and she is so brilliant in all of these films.
Yeah, and I got kind of turned on to some of these with, like, so my wife, Alyssa, she's a huge Lucy fan, and she was watching some documentary a couple years ago about the sort of career of Lucille Ball, and one of them kind of talked about how the studio was just trying to, like, find a place for her. Like, they didn't know what she was good at, and, like, a couple of things they were trying was this type of thing where it's like, having her be the sometimes the femme fatale in some of these sort of film noirs, but overall, just sort of in the 40s, she got a reputation as being the queen of the bees, and the bee pictures, that is. And I think with where we kind of start off, like some of these I'm gonna say are kind of stretches for at least my personal definition of film noir. But they all kind of fit within at least the broad framework of a film noir, and especially with the way that some of the characters are portrayed and everything. It feels like noir. What I'm talking about mostly, I think, is The Big Street, and that one, right, because it's so comic, it kind of has this, like, difficult tone to sort of weave through.
Hey, what film noir doesn't have someone pushing another in a wheelchair from Manhattan to Miami?
Seems like a long trip, right? By wheelchair?
Yeah.
And they didn't even seem that tired.
There's, like, also a weird Midnight Cowboy echo there where, like, they end up in Florida, and it's just, like, this odd pair. I know what you mean, though. I mean, Dark Corner is, like, the most, like, dyed-in-the-wool classic. That is a noir.
Yeah.
Lured sort of dances. It's also doing its own thing with Douglas Sirk, and like a very graceful, elegant touch. And then, yeah, you're right. Big Street is just, it's very funny and odd. It's also, if you want to jump into Big Street, do you guys know who Damon Runyon is, or what Runyon-esque means?
Well, so part of the thing I was excited about with this movie in particular was that, like, Damon Runyon did it, and from on a previous show you talked about how much you liked his work, so I was excited to have you on for at least for that part as well.
I did not know he had any Hollywood career. When I saw it, I almost did a spit take when his name came up. I also thought he must have been so old by this point, because I do not associate him with, like, 40s Hollywood. But he died a few years after this. It was very brief. I think it was only 5 months. He had a studio contract. And this, weirdly, Big Street shares a universe with Guys and Dolls, because Nicely is a character in both.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Cool. Yeah, very weird. Just like that, like, classic style of, like, what people think of like lively gangsters and gamblers during the Prohibition, but very broad nicknames and, like, really almost colorful suits and a lot of slang. That's him, and all his short stories really populate in an almost cartoonish way how we think about early 20th century New York, just as, like, a general schmear. Do you know what I mean? So to see
the shared Runyon verse,
exactly the multiverse of the Damon Runyon. So to see him in the credits and have such, like, a personal hand on this film is bizarre, but it definitely reflects and tracks.
Yeah, well, and a lot of that funny dialogue, and what's his name? The Henry Fonda character's name's Pinks.
Little Pinks.
Or Little Pinks, yeah. And there's a lot of really, like, funny, funky names, and, like, there are lines like, "Of course I'll be nice to her. What do you think? I'm a goon?"
I mean, I almost think that Fonda, though, occasionally plays it so seriously that the character seems like, no offense, like touched, like not all there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when he's like,
he's that much in love.
well, but he's like,
yeah,
I'm the best busboy. He's like, I'm the best busboy.
Well, actually, he's not. He has 2 left feet, according to his boss. So I don't think he is the best. Yeah.
Really good point. Or at the end when he's like, someone that's paralyzed cannot walk, and he's like, I know you can do it. Like, that is like what a child would say. I don't think he's like playing with the full deck through the movie. Just gonna put it out there. Yeah.
So you guys were mentioning some of the names, the colorful names, like Little Pinks was one of them, but the nightclub owner, the gangster, was Case Abels. And I was wondering, because he throws Lucy down the stairs and he disables her, I was wondering if there was something, you know what I mean? Like they kind of just hit it on the head with their name, you know? Like,
It has to be.
Right.
It's like a very lazy portmanteau of disabled on a staircase.
Right.
Like it's really dark when you look at it that way.
Well,
very.
And it's very weird because like that scene in particular. So that happens obviously near the beginning of the picture. This club owner or kind of a gangster gets slighted by Lucille Ball, and he takes it out on her by slapping her down the stairs, which in that scene, it's kind of played as if like, oh, geez, what an asshole, and the whole movie will be about this guy's comeuppance or whatever. But it's like, no. What happens is she gets paralyzed, and the whole movie's about her and that journey she goes through after she's been paralyzed. And it was like, whoa, because everything up to that and everything sort of after that is this really sort of comic and funny and sort of light fare a lot of times. There's this whole underground of like gamblers and
the ne'er-do-wells Wall Street or whatever you want to call it.
The sort of low level like cheats and exactly con men or whatever, and they're always trying to like pass the hat for her and and help out or whatever, but just the way that they operate feels like it operates on sort of some like it hot type of comedic logic. And tone-wise, that's what the movie leaves you with as an impression. But like, if the tone and some of the specific dialogue and stuff like that was played a little differently, you could see this being as more of a film noir, just in terms of its content. Like, if you were to like outline some of the stuff that happens in it,
I mean, that ending. I mean, to me, it edges under the the classification of film noir, because like, why end like that? That is such a downbeat ending.
Didn't we establish on previous shows that RKO films had a strict cutoff of time? I was wondering if they just cut that off for time. They're just like, all right, dance with her, and then she dies, and it was like end of show.
Right.
It did seem very out of nowhere.
We're running out of reels here. We gotta wrap this one up.
It did kind of end. My mom was out here, and she got to watch a couple of these with me, and when it ended, she looked at me. She goes, "What?"
Yeah.
There is something like tragic about she like tears up because she says she wishes she could dance. And then he picks her up and he's dancing with her. And it's both like funny in a wrong way that he's like kind of sweeping this woman across the
Weekend at Bernie's.
Yes, exactly. But it's also very touching. And then she dies. So like, any like credibility,
you're like, wait, what?
The credibility of like her crying, saying she wishes she could dance. I was like, okay, this is actually a very good. I think this is a great performance from Lucille Ball. She is so over the top. Lucille Ball. She's I don't know why the name came out odd there, but she's so committed to like being like ruthlessly ambitious and like always striving for more, always rejecting kindness. It's relentless. I think she's really good in it. Fonda too, even as obsequious as he is. I just want to say I like Henry Fonda's voice. I always thought he had a really reedy. No one sounds like him. I always like. Apparently, a horrible father, not a great human, but I love him in movies, and I've always loved his voice. Even in the Sergio Leone film, big fan.
Right, yeah. And his role here reminds me a little of Lady Eve in a sense, like
yes,
because he's just he's kind of so naive and, so hopelessly in love with her.
Well, they even share an actor. There's a guy that's in Lady Eve. I think that her dad.
Oh, yeah.
He's in Lady Eve, and he pops up in a lot of those films. Eugene Pallett.
Yeah,
the big
that's
guy.
Nice and Nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the "you tub of lard," like they yell at him like that.
He's great. He pops up and stuff.
He was also the sort of the patriarchal figure in My Man Godfrey.
Yes,
if you've seen that.
Yes,
Yeah.
You're absolutely
and he's,
right.
And he's hilarious in that.
He's so good. There's a line in this film. How's your tapeworm, sister? I mean, that's such a funny line, like just casually.
Yeah, there's so many good ones in here, and then yes, the cast. Just to stop on that for 1 second, like Agnes Moorehead's in it, and the guy who plays the professor, Ray Collins. Both of those are Citizen Kane alums.
Mm-hmm.
Agnes Moorehead was Citizen Kane's mom, and then the professor, Ray Collins, excuse me, was the sort of rival politician, Geddes.
I did not realize that Agnes Moorehead played his mom. I
Yeah.
love her. I know her from like Dark Passage and obviously TV, but like, wow. I thank you so much. I just put that together. I did not. That's like my new favorite piece of trivia.
Yeah. There you
Awesome.
go. Yeah. That was awesome. Yeah, and I think in this, like we kind of touched on earlier, it's like it's a little more of a stretch in terms of like the way that we see or we think of film noirs with this one. But I think it's an interesting inclusion in this block in particular because this role for Lucille Ball kind of got her a lot of notoriety. Now, the movie I don't think did well, sort of at the box office, but everyone, still like commented and loved her performance. So much so that I think it got her to the next studio contract. She was at RKO here, and then maybe goes to MGM or somebody later. And off of that, in the very next role she was in, it was a Technicolor thing, and that's where they dyed her hair red and gave her that signature look. So it was like sort of based off of this performance.
So she wasn't a natural redhead?
Was not, yeah.
No,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
The
Wow.
what podcast? I think it's You Must Remember This that died. No, it was the TCM, the Turner Classic Movies podcast.
Yeah,
Plot
yeah.
Thickens. They covered. Yes, I learned that on that it's famously died. Yeah.
But she stuck with that. That was her kind of a signature, huh?
Right, exactly.
Interesting.
The way it was characterized, as far as I know, and I'm not some sort of Lucy expert, but the way it was sort of characterized, to my knowledge, is that it became sort of like a good luck charm. It was a good talisman to have it dyed that way. And she's like, well, let's just keep it,
Apparently, there's a very good documentary on Amazon right now called Lucy and Desi. I'm sure released to coincide with Being the Ricardos, but I think Amy Poehler is behind it. I wanted to watch that before this episode. Unfortunately, I did not. But I have heard, by all accounts, it's supposed to be very good. If anyone is like looking for a documentary about them, and they were together already. I didn't realize that they 1940 is when they started seeing each other. So they were.
Lucy
and then
and Desi,
Desi Arnaz was on set a lot. You might have found this in the research, but he thought that Henry Fonda and Lucille Ball were sleeping together, which they weren't. But he was apparently like skulking around set. And you mentioned the film not doing well. There was a couple other reasons. This might be of particular interest to this party. The editor died during the production.
Oh, shit.
Pretty young too, William Hamilton, like 49 years old. That kind of hurt the production. Henry Fonda was on loan from 20th Century Fox, and he had already gone back to his home studio. And Damon Runyon, his couple months were already up. So a lot of the people involved in the project were either no longer alive or no longer at the studio. So it didn't get this big marketing push that could really... They didn't really have people to do publicity for it. I mean, Fonda wasn't going to. So yeah, I think that's why it died on the vine too.
Well, and then I think it's also just, from an audience perspective, like it's kind of that tone thing. It's like, is it a sort of, gangsters and film noir, or is it a comedy, or is it at the very end of this, like, sort of operatic tragedy where she like does one dance, takes one step on her own and dies immediately. Like, whoa.
It felt like an opera at the end. I thought that's exactly what it was, intended to be.
I mean, like, tone-wise, it also kind of reminded me of like Arsenic and Old Lace, which is, sort of marketed as like kind of a screwball comedy.
Comedy, yeah.
But it has this really, really dark tone. So it's sort of just the opposite. It's like this one
like Harold and
has
Maude.
a lot of dark undertones, but is played as a comedy. And Arsenic Old Lace is billed as a comedy, but has it's pretty dark when you watch it.
This felt, I don't know why this felt to me. Who is that? Samuel Fuller did a movie about early newspapers. And that's like more 19th century New York. But this had the same sort of energy and patter of his newspaper movie, which was like an independent noir that he made, Park Row. Different time era.
Yes, right. God.
Good movie, but similar type
I've
thing.
I've had that
like,
on a list to watch for a while now, but
it's good, but it's the same thing of like very broad characters, very broad New York characters with like snappy patter and like almost comedic side characters, and then like tragedy. It's a very odd fusion. So if you like this, you might like that. Also, the eating competition, like what noir has an eating competition?
Yeah. And they called him Lardass. And so it's
straight
like
a Stand By Me.
Yeah, right. Stand By Me. Lardass Hogan.
Yeah, exactly. Wide load.
Hey, Lardass, chow down, wide load.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
If only it became a puking competition. But
yeah,
how funny
I was waiting for that. Yeah. Where's the castor oil and all that? Yeah.
Was Agnes Moorehead with her like really slow, dainty eating or whatever, and she was supposed to be able to pack it in or something?
I also like to point out that my phone autocorrects Agnes Moorehead to Agnes Motorhead, so all of my notes are about Agnes Motorhead with like Lemmy's band.
Yeah.
The Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
Any Lemmy reference on this is good for me.
Hey, glad we can have a connection to Lemmy.
Absolutely.
There's a Licorice Pizza connection to this movie because Henry Fonda and Lucille Ball reteamed for a movie, I think in the 60s, called Yours, Mine, and Ours. And that's the movie in Licorice Pizza that they're doing the anniversary live show of. With the kids.
Dude.
That's a real movie. It has a different title in Licorice Pizza. I think it's called like One Too Many or something. But it's basically referencing the Lucille Ball movie with all the kids.
Yeah, because there was like a fake Lucy. I forgot about that. Right.
Yes, Christine Ebersol, I believe, played her. It's like a Lucy. Her name's Lucy, and it's like a red-haired ex-TV actress who's like smoking and mad at the kids backstage. That was
not
a movie.
Lucille Ball, okay? We're
yeah,
not getting sued
different
here.
Lucy. Different.
Exactly.
We hate Lucy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Lucy with an I, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that was a movie. That was her like reteaming with Henry Fonda, and I think they even did one before this. But yeah, they did a couple together. So I just found that kind of interesting.
Very interesting.
All right, get out of here, Pinks.
Are you comfortable?
Great, now evaporate.
Well, should we move on to the much more hard-boiled, slick talk and no smiles of the Dark Corner?
Dark Corner, this was straight up noir, right? Like we're talking about noir to the fullest here on every level. Yeah, this was excellent. I love this film.
a lot of the sort of lighting and like you could feel how things are a little less polished or lower budget. It's definitely a B picture, this one.
But for being a B picture, there were some, like you said, lighting, first of all, when we finally find out who our killer is, when he's walking down the stairs and he just steps right into shadow and it just cuts off the top of his head, like all that stuff. There was also that scene where William Bendix gets pushed out of the window, which I thought was fucking terrifying. It looked real. Like I was like, if somebody saw that back in the day, that'd have been amazing. And then it was followed up by a pretty cool chase scene, like a car chase scene.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, like this is where the budget went.
Right.
And the car chase scene did something that I love in movies that you see once in a while. Drive did this.
The Dark Knight move?
Right, the camouflage. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's a classic, trope, but I love it.
It felt like when all the taxis were going in, I felt like the same thing with all the school buses coming out of the bank in the Dark Knight, and they get like wrapped up with all the it was really well done.
It pops up once in a while. I love the Dark Corner. I mean, it's not only the most noir because the word dark is in the title, but half the movie is like plunged in like darkness. Like most of the scenes are like. There's that one where William Bendix like beats up the two guys in the apartment. I mean, that is like just like you can't really see. You just see like bodies moving. Very like dimly lit rooms, shadowy fights. Also really good dialogue too. Like framed easier than Whistler's mother was a really good line. The L, like it's demolished now. Parts of it are the High Line, but like the elevated subway line in Manhattan, all over. You hear it. It's in the background of windows. They're under it.
It's almost the score of the film. That cityscape.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing I found kind of like looking into the background of this, and I actually thought this, I was like, it's almost so basic noir, and that it's like a PI framed with a secretary that kind of loves him that's helping him. And that's Maltese Falcon. That's like so many noirs follow that template that it's almost, one source said meta. I don't know about that, if that's a bit too generous to its intentions, but it does follow like such a basic template of, and the villain that kills his own henchman. I mean, come on, that's like so dirty, you know?
Well, and that part in particular, I was like, okay, they're finally gonna find a way to pin it on the real bad guy here, and he's like, nope, he takes care of that one real quick, shoving him out the window.
That scream.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Wilhelm.
It was an odd scream. And I also thought, because at the time, it's so funny you say that, Brian. I was like, man, that must have freaked audiences out. Because it does seem like it's sincere.
And you see his face the whole time. You know, he's kind of looking at the camera as he's, disappearing into this distance.
Yeah, it reminds me of the... oh God, what was it called? The Hitchcock movie, Saboteur.
Oh, I was just about to say that. The Statue of Liberty scene. That fall looks so real.
Or a little bit of the Don Siegel one. What's it called? The lineup where he throws that guy off the building. You know,
the wheelchair. The guy. In the indoor the pool in San Francisco.
Although that one was a little more vicious, but I guess San
both
Francisco
of those
Noir. There we go.
Both of those are great. Yes, that's a great San Francisco Noir. The Saboteur one. That guy died last year. The sort
Lloyd,
of weird looking Norman Lloyd. I think.
Norman Lloyd. Yeah.
He had a thing at the Oscars actually, a little like and I was like,
Memoriam.
Saboteur. Yeah. They didn't have Bob Saget, which I thought was weird. But he.
Holy shit! I didn't even realize that.
Happens every year. There's always like one person that they get controversy for, but it was bound to happen.
Nobody knew who Bob Saget was though, so I get it. Fucking idiots.
Obscure comedian.
Yeah, it's legend.
Those falls, it's very impressive how they did it. It's so funny though, because the Vertigo one looks so unconvincing. I still love Vertigo, but it's funny, the black and white ones, the staged falls. I don't. Maybe it is because
I think it's because the separation between, however they do, like whatever it was called back then, but a composite of your plate and your subject and everything. There's something that you don't see any color tonal shifts or anything between the two, so you kind of feel like they're in the same plane. But when it starts going into color, there's always going to be something that's off, and you can almost see an edge to them that looks like it's almost a sticker on top of a.
The blacks aren't quite as deep or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
It just doesn't mesh well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree. I thought this one was awesome. This one felt. When I watched it, I kind of like jumped back because it's just his face creeped me out. Getting a little goosebumps here.
Bendix, man, he's fantastic. He's come up in some.
Awesome.
Has he come up before? I mean,
he's been in some of our other shows. Yeah.
And Cover Up, he was the sheriff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's excellent. He's got the face, the jaw, the nose, the whole presence on screen for this type of film.
Brass knucks ain't legal.
Make nice brass knuckles, don't they?
Brass knucks ain't legal. I just carry my change the hard way.
There's a line that's cited.
Brass knucks.
Someone says, "There goes my last lead. I'm all dead inside. I'm backed up in a corner, and I don't know who's hitting me." And it's like, that has been cited as like, that's just film noir. That's just like the definition.
That was Brad saying that, right? P.I. Brad? Yeah. I felt like that journey with him was so uneasy and stressful from the very beginning. And then all of a sudden when that frame happens, it's just that whole time trying to clear his name. I was very much on board with that adventure, but also stressing out for him at every turn. It just seemed like he could never get ahead of it, and, finally he does, obviously. And then, of course, he gets married to Lucille Ball at the end, totally from her. She doesn't even wait for him to ask. She just says, nah, we're going to go to the courthouse right now. We'll see you at noon.
Yeah.
So
Such
many
a cool
noirs
ending.
have that. If it's not the button of like, the lead protagonist going off with his love, either to get married or having just been married. It's like a side character giving like a one-liner, like, well, there goes the neighborhood, or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's
kind of what this was, yeah.
Classic Button, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Did you guys notice at one point they went to some fancy party? It was like kind of a nightclub. Oh no, it was a private party, right? Because it was for the for the
art gallery or the
art gallery owner. But like the camera sort of starts off on someone like playing the bongos, and it was like, is this Babalu? Can we get Desi in here?
Well, it's funny. A lot of these films, particularly this one and the next one, have to do with like high art and sophisticated culture and like classical modes of art, whether it's opera in the later one, or like the art world in this one. And this one's so funny because Clifton Webb, who was queer in real life, Laura made him famous as like,
right. I was like, why do I know this guy from? Right.
But see, it's the same deal because Laura, he's also obsessed with this painting. There's like the art world coming into it. So it's like almost kind of a remix of Laura, this movie, because it brings Clifton Webb back in. I mean, it has the same kind of ending. He's like shot and he's like revealed to be, an antagonist. He's playing the same character in a lot of ways and not as good of a script as Laura. And the art world again. So there's like a weird parallel echo to that recent hit.
Wow.
And it feels like he was, that becomes, he was just doing the thing that he was recognized for,
Mm-hmm. I wanted to bring up something about the art, the way that Bradford, the PI, gets into like the, I guess the antagonist's lair, if you will, the art dealer, is he says he's going to buy I think it was a Donatello statue.
Yeah. Why don't you wrap that one up for me?
Wrap that up. This is going to be $40,000. He goes, I'm trying to think what $40,000 first is in this time frame. Probably, maybe 450,000 or something like that. Maybe less, but I don't know. I don't know how that works inflation wise. But he's like, I know it's not much of a purchase, but maybe we could still get a private meeting with your boss there about it. And it was like, 40,000 seems like quite a bit of money. But also looking at a Donatello, probably not at this point. I don't know. Not sure how inflation.
Maybe you can just throw in the pedestal for me too.
Yeah, he's like, but it's just one of our basic ones. He's like, I need to have it.
I had to look it up, and I'm not saying like the first thing on Google is always the right thing, but apparently it's $581,981. So you weren't too far off. Yeah, just under 600.
Yeah. Wow. But still, that seems like quite a steal for a Donatello.
It really does. Those are like priceless.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. There is some
beautiful statue.
The way that like names are thrown around without really, I think like in one of the later ones, like Baudelaire, the poet, is quoted, but it's not his poem, and just like, and then this is very conscious. There's a Woody Allen film where Hugh Grant at one point is talking to someone who doesn't know much about the art world, and she's like,
we have one or two paintings, but I haven't really gotten around to building a collection yet.
So what are you interested in? What's your
Rembrandt, Picasso, Michelangelo, the boys.
Yeah. I mean, I think I might be out of Michelangelo's just at the moment.
Oh.
And that's like very knowing, right? But it's funny to see it accidental. I mean, I doubt he'd be having a Donatello classically sort of for sale in his New York mansion.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the Donatello. It was just a Donatello.
Oh, that's a good point. It could have been the Ninja Turtle. Yeah.
The Ninja Turtle did it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this was remade by Francois Truffaut as Confidentially Yours in 1983, and it was his last film. Wow. I always forget that. Yeah, Truffaut died kind of prematurely, and like right after Close Encounters, he like made a couple more movies and then croaked.
Wow, I didn't know he died right after, because he seemed pretty young in Close Encounters. At least not old enough to die, in my opinion.
That's always like the sad thing about him, is that like, Godard is still alive and so many of these guys like lived on. But yeah, he kind of died fairly young for being so. Yeah, but his final film was a remake of this one, which I found like just something I just did not know at all.
Wow.
I need to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, I loved this film. It was fantastic.
This was great. Yeah, Dark Corner and Lured were by far my favorites of this trio. I thought they were both hand in hand very good and in their own ways.
Very pulpy.
Yeah, and I really like this one. There's so much like great stuff in it. It's really fun. It's like a lot of great one-liners. I mean, the mystery's great. The setup's great. I feel like the sort of payoff or whatever, like him solving the mystery needed another draft. Like he kind of stepped on the old jump to conclusions mat there.
Yeah.
It's a mat with different conclusions that you can jump to.
That is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life, Tom.
Yes, it's horrible.
You hear about the guy that invented the pet rock? He made $1 million.
But and I also think like as much as I enjoyed the sort of Bradford Mark Stevens character, I feel like it has that thing where it's like some B picture film noirs like unfortunately have this where it's like the lead just isn't quite as strong as you'd want them to be. It's like carrying some of those lines and making them as convincing as possible. And that and some of the pacing in this, you have to kind of really stick with it. But I really ended up enjoying this one.
I mean, just like watching a Batman movie, I'm more about the villains. And I thought Clifton Webb was an excellent villain in this.
Yeah.
Very sophisticated, just cold as fuck.
You're right about there were so many of these made that so often they'd be like, oh, that guy? Yeah, sure, why not? And their one starring role will often be like the noir you're watching them play a very... It's kind of not fair because, I mean, who knows how these actors would have been on their own merit. But like it would often be, you're right, it is like a guy being given a shot to like test him out. It's often to see like, can we make him a star? So like he's given like a shitty B pulp noir, which I love, but at the time they're making so many of them. It wasn't that much of a liability for them to like test, one of their stock players out or someone who had been doing something different. And that's why so often that is their one starring role. I mean, it happens sometimes in Westerns too, but it's very frequently it's like, that's it. And if it didn't hit, or if it wasn't a hit, or, if they didn't have something else cooking, that's their one. Yeah. It also with female leads, it happens a lot with femme fatales at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they get kind of like more of a, if you're just like the square-jawed detective who doesn't have like anything interesting, it's kind of like, you don't even get to be quote unquote bad on screen or like steal the audience's attention. You do get top billing, but
You're just a set piece, you mean? You're just kind of...
Kinda. And a lot of these guys, you do... I mean, like, the classic example people reference is George Raft as, like... I like George Raft. I also think he's had an interesting career in terms of, like, he pops up later in, like, what is it? Some Like It Hot.
Some Like It Hot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he's so wooden. And he's, like, just kind of, like, always just the same expression and just steady on and just nothing that special. And who is it? Dana... Andrews, Quentin Tarantino in some interview was just like talking about like, Dana Andrews is just there to be like the white guy that they found to just like be in front of the camera. Like does not like him. I don't mind Dana Andrews. I never thought of it.
I disagree. I really like him in a lot of stuff. I mean, Laura you just brought up, and then Best Years of Our Lives.
No, he's good. It's interesting. There are so many what you are talking about, Jeremy, happens all the time. It's like they get someone to sleepwalk through the role that's been a supporting character, and then they're never given another shot.
Right. But you brought up the femme fatale thing real quick. It's interesting. I thought at the very beginning of this movie, I thought that was sort of where the Lucy character was going to end up being more of a femme fatale in this one. But it sort of subverted my expectations on that one, where it's like, no, she actually is this ally for our lead character.
I mean, she pretty much helped him solve the case, right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
If I think she did a little bit more work than he did as a PI.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost similar in that sense. Her character is very similar to the one she plays in the next movie.
Yeah.
Where she's kind of like the sort of catalyst
she's solving
for
the Zodiac killing.
Mysteries. Yeah.
That actually happens in a couple other noirs as well, where they're like, well, the only way to solve this is to put the protagonist's love interest in dangerous peril, like make
a baited
them bait.
situation. A bait, exactly. Yeah.
There's a couple. There's a Peter Lorre, Stranger on the Third Floor does that to vindicate the main guy. His girlfriend is like the new target that almost gets killed by Peter Lorre. And then there's the Steve Guttenberg neo-noir, which sounds very odd to say.
Yes, that was the craziest thing you've ever said, I think.
Yeah, there's one from the 80s, like the woman in
Which
the window.
Which police academy was that?
Mahoney? Detective Mahoney?
Police Academy, City Streets.
That's great.
It's the same deal where like they end up using a young love interest to sort of bait the killer. That's gonna drive me crazy. The Bedroom Window. That is a great movie. But it's Steve Guttenberg and Isabelle Huppert as love. Just take that for what it's worth. Very odd. And then Elizabeth McGovern is the one that they put in Risk. 1987. If you're from Baltimore, it's a good Baltimore movie. A lot of Baltimore scenes. But,
Baltimore Noir.
Baltimore Noir. Yeah.
Baltimore
Thick genre. Baltimore. Yeah. Sorry, tangent. But they do that a lot. They put the woman in as bait. That's like the female, the love interest of the protagonist was very frequently used in these sorts of situations, and it's so fucked up. It's like the cops are like, well, she can die, but it's ridiculous.
So today I've learned that Lucy's hair was not really red, and that Steve Guttenberg was in something other than Police Academy or Short Circuit. This is amazing. Good show, guys. Good show.
Yeah.
It's like the Stonecutters from Simpsons. Who makes Steve Guttenberg a star?
We do.
We do. Well, speaking of the police academy, we've got an American police chief in London, or whatever this is. What city? We're in London, right? In
London.
Yeah,
yep.
London. Jolly old.
But like, I guess Charles Coburn or whatever. I mean, it's like he wasn't even pretending to be English.
British, yeah.
Huge Shakespearean actor and Southern boy, Georgia. He was known for his Shakespeare performances, apparently, which I find I love when like very Southern actors, like stage actors, become like dyed-in-the-wool Shakespeare actors. It happens a lot, and apparently, and he's like a really good example of that.
Interesting.
And how much were you confusing the George Saunders character for his role in All About Eve?
I mean, it's kind of the same.
Was he playing the same guy or what?
He is an interesting dude. He killed himself, right?
Oh no!
And he mentioned being bored in his suicide note. So like it's thought that he like
bored
killed himself
to death,
from literally bored to death. Yeah,
wow.
He just didn't want to be alive anymore. Very interesting guy.
That's a new one for me, I guess.
So this one doesn't really fall into film noir, right? I mean, that's kind of what we were saying, or does it? I mean, just based on a few factors, but what do you guys think about that? Because this is more of a serial killer type film, like more of a detective procedural in a way.
It feels like it borders it. It's definitely not Dark Corner,
right? No,
but it's definitely a Douglas Sirk film. It is so stylish and so classy and obsessed with like marble countertops and chandeliers and like the bracelet with the white elephants. It's all very well textured. It's not a classic noir. It borders the it's a smudge of a definition anyway.
It touches on a lot of things that film noir obsesses with. Like, for instance, I mean, even just this idea that like stories like The Big Sleep, in the popular imagination, there's this idea about, someone with all this wealth or whatever, that they don't need to get involved in anything sordid. That's only for the ruffians and the underground or whatever. And there's this idea that like in both this and in Dark Corner, there's this interesting conspiracy around like someone who's really wealthy being involved in all these murders. And in that sense, it sort of touches on and subverts some of the expectations of movies at this time, where those types of character traits are not usually put upon the very wealthy, except in things like film noir. And that and the sort of lurid subject matter of lured, it's feels
English language there.
Yeah. Hello, feels very very noir. I mean, most times I think when people think of film noir, they're thinking of things where it's like some sort of private investigator or insurance investigator or something,
right?
But there's also a sort of subgenre of it with kind of it being a more police procedural, and I think this kind of falls into some of that.
Yeah, the scenes with Charles Coburn and the cops talking at Scotland Yard, it's a bit of a it was hard not to want to check my phone in those scenes, to be quite frank. But I got through it. I watched it. But like it's like whenever it goes like to Lucy or to like when she's in danger, those are great. Or like in the park,
like her and Boris Karloff.
Yeah, Boris Karloff playing Jeremy Irons.
The best. Scene in
nice.
The movie.
Yeah,
that's a really good shout. That he does look like Jeremy. I loved that scene with the audience of the bulldog.
Yeah,
it was like all of these red herrings and layers of like misdirection of who the killer could be. He might be a killer. Like I'm not going to say Boris Karloff has not killed a human in his life in this movie, but he's not the killer that we're looking for. But definitely cool misdirection.
Right.
Charles Van Druten, Boris Karloff.
It reminded me of a Hammer horror film called Fear in the Night with Peter Cushing, where he's a headmaster who it's revealed in the film. I don't want, if you're gonna see it, maybe skip ahead, if this is included. There's no students in the school, so outside you think it's like a bustling school. It's all tapes. It's like tapes of classes and tapes of children. He's been recording, but now everyone's gone. So he's like this headmaster wandering this empty school, hearing it from the speakers. And then it's also king of comedy, how he's like doing stand-up to nobody, there's something creepy, very creepy about Boris Karloff opening up the curtain. It is just empty chairs and a bulldog.
I got a Last Man on Earth kind of vibe from more Omega Man, to be honest, in terms of like those scenes. But he definitely had that odd, I don't even know what it was. Clearly there was something just wrong with him in many ways, and he was a great just featured character, I guess. But it was neat how they kind of just brought you out there, and then we got out of that real quick. And that was like, again, it was similar to that other fella too, right? Wasn't another person in there selling girls into slavery? And like that was another one of the
South American ship that was like, Yeah. So that's an interesting point. Like this movie almost feels like an anthology film.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, that's a good point.
There are essentially like sort of three.
That's probably why I liked it so much. Yeah.
Of two of them end up being red herrings, and then one sort of like the person they're looking for.
Totally.
But it's almost as if like some of them are disconnected. It's just like the connective tissue in this case is the Lucy character, Sandra Carpenter.
It could have been a TV show, right? Those could have been individual episodes that go in like, oh, well, we didn't get him again, but we got this guy. Yeah.
Tune in next week. And,
I wrote down Zodiac, but sending to Scotland
7,
Yard.
Zodiac, yeah.
But then I realized that Zodiac famously, him doing that echoed what Jack the Ripper did, which is the exact same thing of like sending those little notes. And then like...
The poet killer.
Right. The cobblestones, the fact that it's in London, the dingy, like the back alleys, the old lamplights. I was thinking like,
love it.
This is all Jack the Ripper remix in the beginning. And then with Boris Karloff, there's like a little bit of universal horror. It's really playing on like things that just it scare us. It's sort of all mashed together in a film that isn't incredibly scary, but just very bizarre. It also feels it feels like the most cult film of them. Like it feels like there's a lot of pop culture, a lot of because of the contrast of like the down and dirtiness and the horror and the grittiness, and then like the high scale class side of it. It does feel like it has like a bit of a cult. I don't know. There's not much like this. There's a noir called Hangover Square that this reminded me of. That I think is a better movie, but it also has like a Bernard Herrmann score. It sounds like Vertigo. He's like testing out what he did in Vertigo in Hangover Square. It's the audition for Vertigo. So if you liked Lured, see Hangover Square. But isn't it weird seeing Lucille Ball and Karloff in a scene together? Wasn't that strange?
Very strange, but awesome.
Yeah. It's like seeing Carol Burnett and Bela Lugosi. I wrote down like it's just kind of strange.
Yeah. Well, I guess real quick on that note, like it was so interesting in basically all three of these films, like kind of seeing her acting range, because we're all familiar with Lucille Ball as the character Lucy Ricardo and like the like and all her sort of physical comedy and all these other things. But in these ones, like she's a very effective lead in all three of these.
Very much so.
And very convincing in all these moments. But like it's like, while I think the TV show it expresses like something that she does like extremely, extremely well, like what's wild is like how broad her range actually was.
Exactly.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
I believed every moment she was in. I believed all of her deliveries, and I thought that she upstaged every other, I guess, main actor or main character in these movies. You know, especially in Lured, Dark Corner especially as well. But Lured, I thought she had, you know, she had those scenes that were just solo not monologues, they were dialogues, but it was just her on screen on the phone, you know, calling in, giving all the information that she got. You know, I've got this guy. I thought she was like the best part of these movies.
I completely agree. She pops from the screen. She really pops from the screen. And her and George Saunders in this are fantastic rapport. There's a scene where they're on the phone together.
Look here, is it customary for Mr. Fleming's secretary to pass judgment for his boss?
Mr. Fleming never makes a move without me. In fact, he very frequently has me take his young ladies out to dinner in order to talk things over.
Thanks, I'll go hungry.
And I just remember thinking like, oh, they're kind of equals. Like they're very sharp.
Yeah, or the scene where like she meets him at his club or whatever, and they're like getting martinis or whatever, and like she's like, oh, hey, make him play that song again, and you know, but before that, it's like, you know, she still has the upper hand on him the whole time, and then she bails while he's gone. So it's like, you know, there's all these moments where she's playing a very strong character. I mean, obviously in Big Street, she's you know, ball breaking the entire time, and you know, gives no fucks for anybody.
Yeah.
And even in Dark Corner, it's like, which was closer to, you know, what one would expect for a female role at that time. You know, she wasn't quite as I guess subservient as one would expect.
She was snappy in this one.
Yeah.
I liked her in this one. There's also just like one piece of dialogue I wrote down. It's like someone's doing a crossword. He's looking for a 5-letter word for an excavator.
Yeah.
And then someone else says she doesn't want to hear Schubert in B minor. And then it reminds him, oh, the word he's looking for is minor.
Minor,
like,
yeah.
That just very clever.
Doesn't
like,
that pop up a couple times?
Oh, yeah, it was a running gag with that.
Yeah,
detective
the
or
crossword
whatever, yeah.
Yes. I really enjoyed this one. Really, really enjoyed this one.
What's a 6-letter word meaning ancient tyrant?
I don't know, but I have something I should tell.
The chief?
Mm-hmm. Will you watch Caesar for me?
The things I do for the force. Caesar, that's it.
It's fun. I just gotta say, there's something, you know, Douglas Sirk. He brings light bounces off hair. It is gorgeously shot, and I've only seen a couple of his films. The only black and white film of his I've seen is Tarnished Angels, his like pilot film. But I All That Heaven Allows, Magnificent Obsession, Imitation of Life. I love his films, and it was a real treat seeing that sort of like very gentle, beautiful framing. Seeing that touch here was a surprise. I've never really seen him work in like a noir trapping before, even if this
is the first Sirk film we've had on the show, and if it's not, I apologize for forgetting the 80 plus films we've watched for the show so far.
There's that Todd Haynes movie, which I actually have never seen. I've never seen Far From Heaven, but like with Julianne Moore. But that is apparently Todd Haynes doing a riff on Douglas Sirk, and that was when I first heard about that movie coming out. It was like, oh, he's referencing who? Who is this director? And then I went back and yeah, he's great. The one I have yet to see is Written on the Wind. That's supposed to be one of his more. That's leaving Criterion this month, so I need to watch that. Like All That Heaven Allows, like Magnificent Obsession specifically, are like if you're looking for like what Sirk is really defined as, those are really good examples. Just like drenched in color, people confined in gender roles, trapped in melancholy suburbia, torrid love affairs, weird like sweeping violin scores, beautiful, beautiful films. I thank you guys so much for introducing me to Lured, because I think that this is like Dark Corner is great. I'm gonna back pocket that, as they say, as like a noir fan. The Big Street, I just want to point out, Warhol called it the sickest film ever made. Andy Warhol has a quote about the Big Street, the sickest film ever made, and I can see what he means with the wheelchair stuff and the fawning over her. Yeah. So it's kind of a gross movie, but this one, I'm like, if you want to see like a good Lucille Ball movie, I think Lured is the one I'm going to recommend. Dark Corner is great, but like there's just so much going on here, and it's.
You mean from her performance mostly, or for the movie?
Her performance, that it's like a Douglas Sirk film, that it's like that. It reminds me of like Hangover Square, another noir I like a lot. I like High Society noir once in a while. There's just so much going on here, and again, texturally, beautiful film. Really, really love this film. So many creepy men, so many red herrings.
Because right at the beginning, like there's this thing where Lucy is working at a place where it's like, you know, men come in to a club, like pay the owner to get one of the women up in this little like balcony or whatever to dance with them or whatever.
And it's a strip club, right? I mean, like by current standards. I mean,
kind of. Yeah, it's
the
like,
format of it,
or it's
It reminded me of speed
What are those
dating.
things called?
Like,
or the girlfriend experiences, like in Korea, like or Japan.
Yeah. What's that called? Where it's like the bar girl. It's that thing where it's like, you know, you pay for a 15 minutes of companionship or whatever, and like,
right.
You know, that also, like, right in that scene, there was this line about it, like, essentially, they talk about like how the crowd is undead or like walking on their feet, and they're like, oh, is tonight zombie night or something like that?
Come on, take a turn, beautiful.
What is it tonight? A sweepstake for zombies? I hope you two will be very happy.
And like, there's this idea about like what zombies used to be. You know, calls back to one of our early episodes. But like in 1947, zombies aren't what we think of them today, where it's like they're sort of, you know, rotting, brain-eating, you know, monsters. Then it was more so like people without any personality and you know, or kind of like, you know, puppeteered and
automatons.
Yeah, exactly, automatons. Which I thought was hilarious because like in that moment it was like, you know, they were talking about how the crowd wasn't very lively or whatever, and because Lucy's friend got lured by something else. So there's a lot of luring in this movie.
Yeah. With the lurid subject matter.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, given censorship,
lurid.
I'd imagine that it's implied that and also given the Jack the Ripper connections, I think it's a gentleman's club where if they do want to go home with you, you can pay them. I think these are sex workers in a way.
Yeah.
But it's very lightly hinted at, almost to the point of like not just outright saying it. I don't think it's a brothel. I think it's like a gentleman's club combo.
But the female could make the decision to make a deal with their gentleman suitor whether or not that they want to continue the evening. Maybe that's a nice way to say it.
Yeah, I don't know a good way, like modern equivalent, but it's, you know, this definitely tracks with.
That's where I got strip club from, just because that's kind of what happens, right? You get a dance from a girl, and then
that's true.
The discussion continues.
Yeah, it's a different kind of yeah. This one, it's like, I don't know what, it's more of a ballroom soiree or whatever.
Right, yeah.
but yeah, like because maybe the censorship at that time, they weren't able to sort of talk about what they were doing there. And, you know, there's a lot of like darkness in that movie that lured, where it's like, you know, you think about what was supposed to be happening on that South American ship or whatever, where like,
yes,
you know, it's, you know, with the trafficked people being sold as sex slaves in South America, and like how Lucy came over with some show. She was like a dancer or something in the movie, and like then she gets there, the show collapses, and she needs to, like, you know, work at the strip club or whatever for money.
How she makes ends meet. Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, bodies are thrown into the river, weighed down with stones.
Yeah.
That's like a very, very dark detail in this film that is otherwise pretty, you know, fairly white-gloved.
Yeah, I would definitely like to point out how terrifying that type of murder actually would be for the victim. You're completely helpless and drowning. Like that's when you're completely aware that you're dying. Like that to me is very dark and very sinister when it comes to describing a serial killer or creating like a really vicious villain.
Right.
Yeah, weighed down in a sack.
And definitely not as fast as William Bendix's Death in Dark Corner. You know, it's like it's
cue
a slow...
Wilhelm scream.
Right. Or Clifton Webb's death when he's shot, because, you know, as we learned from Star Wars, you know, she had the upper ground. She's remember the widow is on the staircase. Right. So, you know, classic Ben Kenobi
and she
moment, you know?
riddles him with bullets. That gun was emptied out on this guy.
Right.
She was pissed.
Right.
And she was pissed because she found out that he killed her lover, right?
That's what it was. Yeah.
Well, comeuppance. That one got it.
Yeah.
I think this one had an interesting art designer. I think because they go to like a party where there's like the art director Nikolai Remesov. So this guy's like a famous artist. He designed the sets for Lured. That's why when they go, there's like that weird tree. There's like, it's almost like an avant-garde, strange art party dinner gala that they go to. Mm-hmm. Very interesting design in this film. And this guy, Nikolai Remesov, is quite renowned, has his own Wikipedia page. Russian artist of note in like museums. Yeah, worked on this film.
Wow.
That's why it looks different. I mean, and also Douglas Sirk. I mean, it has a much more, it's not, alleys of downtown LA,
Right.
Great film. Really, I think this one, again, this is the one I'm going to be recommending to people as, Lucille Ball did this. And actually, I think it was her 73rd, not 72nd. So sorry about that. But,
you're
wow. How lazy is she?
Lots of uncredited films, yeah.
Alex, you said that you might have started off watching an incorrect film, I guess, for at least this show, but it was, you said you saw an extra film. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that too, and maybe give some ideas for other movies.
I would love to. And also, it made me ask, how much have you guys dived into Pre-Code?
Only a little bit. I think it would be really cool to check some of those out. I did get a couple in anticipation of doing a Pre-Code block, but go ahead.
Man, so this is my new kick. I saw Babyface last November at the New Bev, followed by Night Nurse. Babyface, Barbara Stanwyck, it's like King Kong. It's going to be watchable forever, and it is so quotable. And
Babyface?
Babyface. Please see Babyface. It is so good, and it's so feminist and ahead of its time. I was there. There were like girls that are so young, like 16, 17 in the crowd, screaming, cheering on Barbara Stanwyck, talking about how she's like going to sleep with men to get to the top. And how like how ruthless you have to be. And John Wayne is also like a secretary that has his heart broken by her in a very pre-cowboy role. Dude, Babyface is great. And Night Nurse is good too. That has like Clark Gable as like a villain poisoning children. Pre-code film, dude. Like these movies have cocaine and queer coding. So the one I watched accidentally, because I looked up advanced IMDb search, film noir, Lucille Ball, Blood Money. So this movie, I loved Blood Money. It's 65 minutes in and out. There is a great, like a woman in a suit who has like a line. She like sniffs a cigar and she's like, "You big sissy." Clearly a queer character.
Right.
There is an ending where there's like an 8-ball. There's like a pool game and an 8-ball that's a bomb.
I thought you were talking about someone else.
No,
I was going to say, there's the cocaine.
Yeah, that's the pre-code.
Valid. It could have been. It could have been,
Yeah.
There's a moment where he's about to shoot an 8-ball with a bomb inside of it. And it keeps like cutting between him about to shoot, like play pool, and then like talking, tense dialogue, and then a car rushing to stop him. A woman trying to like...
Cool. Intercutting, yeah.
Intercutting. And then suddenly you do hear a crash, like a bang, but it's her outside, not the bomb going off. And I'm like, the artist stole that. That is like the big thing of the artist. Remember that bang and it cuts to her hitting the tree? Like, I stood up from my seat. I'm like, this fucking pre-code film. The artist stole from this fucking no one talks about Blood Money. There's a scene at a racetrack and Lucille Ball is like a gangster girlfriend for like fucking 3 frames. Like, barely in the film.
You're texting us a screenshot or something. You're like, is that her? Is this what we're talking about?
Exactly. There's like a luau scene where a woman dances with another woman. It's just, that would not be happening in 1934. 1935, maybe some films made prior, but they'd be heavily edited. Just gone. Nothing. Movies stopped looking like this. Loved it. Loved Blood Money. If you really want to go down the Lucille Ball rabbit hole of her film work, this is one I can.
And that was what, like 33, 32, something
yes,
like that?
1933. Yeah, 33. Frances D stars. She later became Joel McRae's wife. He did all those great Preston Sturges movies. Yeah, really interesting cast. Can't recommend it enough. So I accidentally watched the 4th film for this episode.
No, we appreciate you putting in the extra effort.
Yeah.
Hey, man, for sure. Happy to. And again, guys, these 3, so happy to discover them, especially Dark Corner and Lured. Really honored to be asked back and, happy to discover some new films,
For sure.
Alex, Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us again. Would you mind reminding our audience where they can follow you?
Absolutely. I am on Instagram as OnlyFilmNoir. I am so happy to be back. Guys, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, when these episodes roll out, I'll probably do like a anticipatory post about one of them, and then I'll do the other two with the episode live. So
excellent.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me back. Always a pleasure chatting with you guys. And, I really enjoyed this slate. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for coming back.
Next time, we're going to be doing our Midnight movie, which is a solo film. We're going to be talking about Straight Time from 1978. And why Straight Time, Jeremy?
Well, it's a fun. I guess we're kind of staying in a almost neo-noir type crime world, but it definitely has a little midnight movie type feel to it. And I think this movie was pretty influential to a lot of stuff. Maybe we should save some of that to when we get into it, but there's a lot of early work from some people, including Michael Mann. It's based on the Eddie Bunker, sort of Romana Clef, like the sort of true story of his, prison release. And it's about a guy who gets out of jail and is having trouble adjusting to society when he gets back. So,
adjusting to the straight time as opposed to the hard time?
Yeah. It's a guy doing straight time now.
Got it.
He's done doing hard time, and now he's doing straight time.
Interesting. That should be a fun one.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the podcasts and social platforms at the Grindhouse Institute. And if you really want to give us a boost, check us out on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps us to get noticed. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next week.
Ciao.
Come here, Droopy. I owe you a break. What do they call you?
Little Pinks.
Little Pinks. That's not a name, that's a toothbrush.
Well, my name's really Pinkerton, but I got a brother that's shorter than I am, so they call him Big Pinks. And I'm taller than he is, so they call me Little Pinks. Used to be sort of a family joke. You see, when we were kids,
That did it. Just because I got your job, you don't have to talk me to death.